right, so last week we finally got around to seeing Godzilla, King of Monsters.
Sort of seeing.
It was hard.
It was hard.
It was dark.
It was dark.
There was a lot of people.
It was a lot of people. And I mean, it was not a surprise it was dark, considering it was a sequel to 2014.
Well, also the posters and stuff with the posters, they were all super colorful. Like Rodan's was like red, and King Ghidorah was like yellow.
Those were crazy great posters at the Americana, the mall.
That one was great. Godzilla movies have good marketing.
They do.
And now I'm going to talk about my favorite Godzilla in this episode.
yes, you are.
I know some people hate it, but whatever. So that led us to do 1954 Godzilla.
Yes.
Which I had never seen. This was the first one.
Yeah, this is your first time seeing it, which is kind of amazing. I know that you're a video editor, so you see everything in pieces. Like, I keep finding out that you've seen most of everything, but not all of it.
Not everything. I've seen a lot of stuff.
Right.
A lot of stuff. But I grew up with like Godzilla toys and like video games. The 98 Godzilla, those Godzilla toys. So like I always grew up like, it's hard to not know who the character is. Growing up.
Yeah, obviously.
But like a lot of like classic films, like when are you going to get around to watching those
in
your everyday life? So luckily we have Criterion.
Yeah, and I'm the exact opposite. I grew up watching some of the old, I was a huge fan of Gojira as a kid, right? And then, because I loved black and white things because I was a weird kid. But I saw a lot of the, like Godzilla versus Monster Zero and a lot of the Toho series. And then I stopped watching Godzilla for a long time. I kind of burned out on it, and then it got kind of ridiculous. It had the same arc as like Freddy Krueger, right? Where I liked this when he was menacing, and then he turned into a stand-up comedian, and I kind of lost interest for a bit. So, I didn't really pursue it for a while. But then, so this is one of the things that I really appreciate about Criterion Collection and Channel, and why I'm so excited we're doing a dedicated podcast to them, because I did not know this until we did this watch. But Gojira, the unedited version, the actual original version that was seen by Japanese audiences, not the edited crap that was Godzilla King of Monsters that was Raymond Burr added, and then they took out a lot of what was great of the original for American audiences.
Yeah.
The original movie was not available to see in America for 50 years. No one had ever seen the original Gojira in a mass. Like, obviously, like studio heads might have like snuck in a print or whatever, but like in mass, American audiences were not treated to the original Gojira as seen by Japanese audiences until Criterion.
Is that for real?
Released it. Criterion was the first company to release the actual Gojira in America. 50 years after it was first aired. So this would have been like 50 plus 1954, right? So like the Criterion is responsible for the original being unleashed on American shores, and it's an amazing film. So we're going to talk about a whole melange of Godzilla here, because like I'm really interested in talking about Shin Godzilla, the 2014 Godzilla. But let's start with Gojira, because you just saw it for the first time ever. What did you think of Criterion's? Do
you want to do my tweet? My tweet?
Yeah, review? What's your tweet and length review of Gojira, 1954 Gojira?
Okay, so here's my tweet.
Yes.
Why did I wait this long to see such a good movie?
That's appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
It's great. It's an easy watch. I actually care for like the people.
Right. It's going to be really, so let's just get this out of the way, right? There's no way to do a fresh, really review of 1954 Godzilla. He's one of the foundational characters of cinema, one of the most recognizable characters. He's been written about in every possible way you could write about him. So we're gonna be bouncing this off all the other Godzilla movies, because we just saw King of Monsters, so that's really kind of what's at hand right now. But in terms of the original film, it's just so refreshing. It's amazing that something so old is so refreshing when you compare it to what we're watching now. Because when you compare it to like King of Monsters, it's exactly what you said. You care about what the characters are doing. They feel real. They feel actually terrified. And King of Monsters has none of that.
Like the destruction actually feels like Godzilla has weight in the original.
Yep.
Like when, because we were watching this trying to get it in before the NBA finals started, and I was like I was just like thinking through it, and the first like scene when you see Godzilla, every time he stomps, it's like this big crash. And it was the first time where I was like let's get him to stop.
Right.
This is freaking me out.
Right.
But I haven't gotten that from like any other giant monster movie probably since like Cloverfield.
Right, and let's dive into this because this is really a credit to Criterion. On the channel, as we record this on the Criterion Channel currently, they have the entire collection. So that means all the features they released on the Blu-ray. So they have the audio commentary, they have cast interviews, director stuff, and all that cool stuff that Criterion is known for. By the way, just streaming it on your amazing TV was incredible because they've restored it impeccably. So the black and white is beautiful. It looks amazing. But there was a Japanese film critic. I love this guy. I'll put his name in the show notes because I'm not going to attempt to say it. But he had so many interesting facts and insights about Godzilla as a character and the original film. But the reason I bring it up now is because there were a couple of really cool things he had said in there. So he said that to Japanese audiences, the way Godzilla walks resembles sumo wrestler walking. He actually called it like noshi noshi. Like he had there's a term for it, how the sumo wrestlers walk. And he made a really interesting point about how Godzilla had very restricted movement because of the suit, right?
Yeah.
And the way that came across on the screen was that he was struggling to fight. He said something really interesting about there. He was like, Godzilla had trouble swatting at planes and moving, but he was trying to fight in earnest. And I loved that phrase, that he was like, because that really gets to the core of why Godzilla is so interesting, is you have empathy for him even while he's destroying things. Like, he seems like he's not having a good time. He's enraged because we like nuked his environment.
Yeah.
Right? And he's retaliating, but he didn't want this, right? So like he's not some kind of like, he's not like Michael Myers, like just unprovoked, causing mayhem. So that was really interesting that they identified that walk, because that stomp really, like, you would think in the modern movies that would just come across so much more intimidating, but it doesn't. And one of the reasons one of the things the critic said was that because of that slow, restricted movement, he goes, power doesn't necessarily pair with speed. Mm-hmm. And in the modern movies, Godzilla in 2019's King of Monsters has no problem moving. Like, he swims like a shark, he leaps, he's got no problem, like whatever. He's not like the original Godzilla, but that robs him of some of his power. It gives him speed, but it robs him of some of his power, right? So I just thought that was an interesting thing, and it's a credit to Criterion that they give you that cool stuff in the.
I love the behind the scenes stuff like that. Yeah, none of it's as good as the '98, but we'll talk about that later. You know what I mean?
Yes, of course.
You know what I mean?
We will definitely talk about that later.
So like with this Godzilla, like immediately, and I know like a lot of the critics for this new one have been saying like they don't like the human stuff, they love the monster stuff, and like that's like I get it, like like I think that's pretty fair,
right?
But like I immediately cared for like most of the people, in this version, in the 54 version,
totally.
I just feel like they didn't like spend 5 minutes explaining what they're about to do to you. They were just talking about it, going, and there was just like the way they shot the people we were with, and we were in their environment too. There was a lot of shots where like it just kind of hangs, so like you get real familiar with like the area.
Yep.
So then when Godzilla does come through, you know what's about to be destroyed, and you're more invested in it.
Totally.
Rather than like the big city spectacles today.
Right. Like in King of Monsters, he was just randomly showing up at Fenway Park and obliterating. Well, him and Ghidorah were obliterating it, but like it was completely evacuated at that point. Yeah. So it was just buildings. Like, who cares?
Yeah, there like seeing like there was I think it was the first scene when you see Godzilla and he causes like the mass panic, seeing everybody running on like a busy little sidewalk in that little village or whatever. Like that, like the levels of panic were more realistic in this version, 50 plus years ago than this new one.
Yeah, and I
kind of
think
sucks.
The internet is mostly wrong about this, I think. So like I've seen a lot of chatter on the internet about how King of Monsters is the backlash is okay. Yeah, you guys. I mean, it gave you great monster stuff, and you don't care about the humans. But like the Toho series had ridiculous humans too. So like I mean, let's not pretend these were cinematic masterpieces. But that's wrong. Gojira is, and you do care about the characters, and there is good characterization in it. Now, as the series deepens, and you're getting to like Godzilla versus Monster Zero and Tokyo SOS and Godzilla's jumping up and down on trampolines. Yes, of course. Then the characterization starts to go away some. But compared to the original, I didn't care about any of the characters in King of Monsters like at all compared to.
It felt like this one just felt so grounded.
Yes, that's yeah.
Like I knew where I was at. I knew like the consequences of what was about to happen.
Yep.
I felt for both sides. It was shot beautifully. Oh, our mad scientist friend who
Serizawa, yeah.
Who we just kept saying every time he was on screen and they were in his lab, it looked like a Universal film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
I loved that guy.
So good.
He's the only scientist in almost any of these Godzilla films that I've seen that like I cared about, and he had a wicked awesome eye patch too.
He did. He totally did.
He looked cool. I liked him.
I thought it was really cool the thing in this that they had said about the critic in the piece on Criterion had said that if there's something really special about the original Godzilla, it was the attention to detail. So he really talked about the director. I'm not going to go into all that now, but like watch it because it's really interesting. And he called the director. He said the director was known among other Japanese directors as the god of the wood grain. And then his explanation was even on cheap sets, like Japanese buildings are made out of wood. And Honda would go in, the director of Godzilla, he would go in and with a pencil, he would draw wood lines on the set without people telling him to, because he just cared. He just cared that it looked right? And I feel like when there's so many weird plot holes and strange things going on in King of Monsters, I feel like they're missing some of that care. Now, I don't mean, it's a great director. I love Michael Daughtry, right? So like, I just think that it gets lost when the enterprise is so enormous. Mm-hmm. It's hard to keep an eye on detail when the project is. What's the budget for King of Monsters? It's insane.
Like 170 or something like that.
Right. Like I mean, it's just so hard to do that, and it's not for lack of trying. I'm sure they gave their best effort, but like the thing is, my tweet. What's your tweet length review of King of Monsters?
Oh, mine was. Can we brighten it up, please?
Right. I think my tweet length review of King of Monsters would be. It's mistitled. I think it's Godzilla King of Outposts because there were like 72 outposts in this movie. And we were going from continent to city to underground to like whatever in this. There was just no way to keep track or care. I felt like I felt like I was on a ride with Yosemite Sam from the Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Yeah.
I just felt like we were like taking a left turn at Albuquerque all the time. I was like, what's happening? It was just, that was really, really bizarre. And also the other thing is, so I love a lot of the monster action. I really like, let's talk about King of Monsters for a second.
Okay.
I love the monster design of the main monsters. I hated the peripheral monsters, but like Rodan was amazing.
He was cool.
I thought Ghidorah was really, really well designed. Probably the best shots of the film. But look, here's the thing. I want to ask you a question. We haven't prepared this. You don't know I'm doing this.
Okay.
I'm just going to throw you a surprise question. I just want to see what happens because I feel like this is part of the problem of the movie, right? Who is the main character, human character of King of Monsters?
Kyle Chandler.
Who's that?
The dad.
He's the main character.
I would say he's the main character.
And why?
Well, because he works for National Geographic and he films wolves in Yosemite, and it's important. He also lost a kid, and that's all I got.
Right. I see. Here's the thing. I don't know who the main character of that movie is on the human side. I don't know if it's Vera. I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's the guy who dies, the guy who sacrifices himself.
Yeah.
I just don't know, and I don't think the movie knew who
it was
the main
spread pretty thin,
right? And the main character is definitely Godzilla, obviously. But
yeah.
On the human side, I can't even identify a protagonist because I didn't like his character. He might be the main character, but I don't like him.
Yeah,
and I don't need to like every main character in a film, but like I need something. If I don't like him and I don't think that he's particularly intelligent, and I don't get a beat on his personality, like.
There,
Right? And so let's compare and contrast. When the guy in Godzilla King of Monsters sacrifices himself, spoiler, to feed Godzilla nuclear energy, which is also problematic. It's a callback, direct callback to the original Godzilla with the oxygen destroyer and the eye patch guy goes down and sacrifices himself. And I cared so much when he did it in the original, and I did not care at all.
the music was great in the original when he was doing that.
So right.
That was so good. Yeah, no, because like in King of Monsters, you know, he didn't have like the knowledge to end the world like the guy did in the original with the what was it, the oxygen destroyer?
Right. So the stakes were high, way higher.
Yeah, like he knew he had this knowledge. He was like, I can't let the world have this.
Right.
So I'll take myself out with this thing. They like there wasn't that weight in King of Monsters where it was like, well, what else is he giving up other than his life?
Right.
Other than like he's just a good guy and he's going to do this.
Right.
You know, like it's just it was like a, you know, that's nice that you're paying homage to it, but like why are you doing it?
Exactly.
Like do it for a reason other than like, you know, they did it in the first one.
The callback, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And now, but so here's where I think this could get exciting for me because this could take a turn. Because you and I talked about this before we recorded this. There's a phenomenon in the horror genre. I'm sure it's in all major film genres, but where films are not appreciated at the time and they come back later. So like a couple legendary ones are Halloween 3, which was trashed by critics and fans alike when it came out, but now is really highly regarded.
Yeah.
Right? And I think 2014's Godzilla is in for some of that. In retrospect, when the dust settles and people realize what they've been fed with King of Monsters, right? And then we can
I'm
also
already feeling that.
Right, and we can also talk about Kong Skull Island, which is probably the best movie in the franchise.
Easily.
Right, as it stands right
Absolutely easily.
but well, I think I like 2014 Godzilla better, but I don't know that I can argue that it's better. But regardless,
I see what you mean by that though.
right. But the thing is, because I feel like Kong Skull Island feels like a radically like what I loved about Kong Skull Island, I loved, and then what wasn't there, I didn't care about. But like 2014's Godzilla, I felt like had a theme, which was that mankind is a helpless spectator to nature when it's provoked as badly as we've provoked it, right? So like and that's why King of Monsters even blew out what 2014 was so powerful about 2014's Godzilla, because I don't like that it's so dark, but I love the murky shots. I love what everyone was complaining about that shot where Godzilla first goes after the Muto and the door closes. It's a great shot, and the way Godzilla fights in 2014 is so much better than in King of Monsters. His tactics are so much more interesting. He slams the Muto with his tail into a building. And the music, the way it's framed in 14 is so good. Like the music swells really dramatically and the Muto swoops in. And then the music just stops and Godzilla just slams him contemptuously into a building with his tail. Like, are you kidding? Like, you're like... And so, like, it's just executed so well. And then the way he kills the second Muto... and then the thing, like the amazing part where the Muto is threatening a human and all of a sudden there's a blue glow on the human's face. And for a second you don't register what it is because you're not being shown the source of the light. You're being shown a human face, which is like, I really like how that was done. Then the camera flips back and you just see a little bit of Godzilla's tail and it starts to light up.
Yeah, it goes up,
starts to go up. And it's just such a great shot, right? And then at the end, when he just basically rips the Muto's mouth open and you know, like vaporizes him.
Puts him in an Instapot.
It's amazing. Like all of that, his tactics are so much more interesting. His fighting tactics in King of Monsters are boring.
Yeah, there wasn't like
the designs are cool, but the tactics are boring.
Like the fights looked big, they felt heavy, but like it wasn't. I don't want to say it wasn't exciting, but like I don't think I was thrilled. Like
no, like when Godzilla charged Ghidorah and Godzilla charged each other with as you gave us in the trailer, and you're waiting for that to be a really exciting thing. Now, I will say this just in terms of fairness. I actually love the way Ghidorah moved and fought.
He was cool.
Right, like there was these scenes where he was really low to the ground, like a snake would be, and his heads were like slithering forward on the attack. Like he was better. Like that was more interesting than whatever. Mothra was cool. I thought that was a really cool design too. So those monsters, the designs were cool. I just felt like the fight tactics were pretty poor, and then when Mothra like vaporizes and I don't know, dusts Godzilla with Mothra luck.
Mothra dust, dude.
Whatever that was. I don't know. When you compare to the original and what I think is now way more esteemed personally in my head, 14, than when I first saw it. Mm-hmm. I just feel like it's really poor, right? So all right, so that's that. What else do you want to say about King of Monsters before I pivot to Shin Godzilla and you talk about 98?
I just hope that Godzilla goes to Skull Island. Mm-hmm. They fight in the daytime. I want to see it.
Right.
You know?
Don't worry, they're going to go not just to Skull Island, but like 42 other islands the way this.
I hope pick one place.
They're going to go everywhere, dude. They're going to
pick one place.
Godzilla's going to send postcards from 42
Jesus
continents.
Christ. He's going to visit all the Hard Rock cafes in all the big cities around the world and get a t-shirt.
That is going to be better than what we're going to see.
Yeah, that's all I gotta say with King of Monsters. I wish I would have liked it more, but hey, I didn't like Godzilla 2014, and now I sort of do.
Right? Who knows? Maybe
Godzilla versus Kong.
I don't think so. But
isn't that great that I end up liking this? Because Trick or Treat's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
So like, it just kind of it sucks to say, but like I gotta keep it real. Like, That's that.
Yeah, that for sure. All right, so we had watched a really interesting thing on YouTube. In fairness, I don't remember the name, but I'll definitely put the link in the show notes. It was a really cool video essay on Gojira, Shin Godzilla, and 2014 Godzilla. And the interesting frame that the guy put this in was that Gojira was about nuclear devastation and the perils of nuclear power, obviously, and then 2014 Godzilla was Godzilla as natural disaster, right? And he juxtaposed a lot of shots from 2014 that looked like New Orleans being evacuated for Katrina, or things like earthquake aftermaths and stuff like that. And Godzilla in 14 is accompanied by a lot of devastation that's natural. So like when he comes ashore in Hawaii, he brings a tsunami with him, etc. So it's Godzilla as natural disaster instead of the nuclear part. And then Shin Godzilla is Godzilla as evolution. So Godzilla evolves in Shin Godzilla. He basically starts as kind of like a malevolent tadpole-looking thing, and then he grows and grows, and at the end of it, there's a horrifying shot of Godzilla frozen mid-evolution coming out of his tail that is one of the spookiest things I've seen in a Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
And I think that was the other thing I really wanted to say about that, where I felt like King of Monsters really falls down, and that's really the heart of what we're doing here with this podcast, is it's not scary at all. Godzilla 14 is frightening. There are scenes in that where like the iconic scene where the paratroopers jump out of the plane and they got the red streamers and they're going down, and you're thinking they're just going into fiery, hellish darkness, right? Like if you're any kind of cinema goer and you can think your way into other people's position and you think about being those people being dropped into that thing, it's terrifying, right? There's nothing in King of Monsters. It just felt like cartoonish. There was no Godzilla was not terrifying in King of Monsters. Ghidorah was scarier than Godzilla, actually. In 14, he's pretty scary. In Shin Godzilla, he's terrifying. Like when he starts to laser fire everything, it's just it's the moment in all the Godzilla films where I really believe he could end the world, right?
I will say I haven't seen all of Shin Godzilla. It's one of those films that you mentioned where like I've seen a lot of it, but I haven't seen it. And in that essay that you mentioned, it shows him like walking over city and his tail just hovering over a lot of the buildings. Mm-hmm. Even that felt more dangerous.
And awe-inspiring.
Yeah, like he felt, and that's the thing is like we were talking about this a little bit. I almost wonder if Godzilla isn't better as a lower budget movie.
Right, for sure.
Like get a little creative with it. Because like I feel like if someone says like, hey, you have an unlimited budget, we can do whatever you want, or like, I'm sure 170 for a movie of like that size isn't a lot. Like
Right.
if I had to guess, but I just feel like it's a better idea when you just have to get creative with the monster, other than just letting them fight. Because then it lacked, or maybe whenever you just like say, hey, we have this huge budget, go to town. I don't know. That's why I'm so dumbfounded by King of Monsters. Like, why did that one scene from a movie I haven't seen shock me more than the movie I paid to see in the theater?
Well, we had an interesting discussion on that point about name the best horror movie of all time with a budget of $50 million or more, right?
Yeah.
And when you start Googling it, you start realizing that most horror movies with budgets of 50 million plus are not good.
Sleepy Hollow was one of the best ones on the list,
which was 80 million, but you had World War Z, you had like what else?
Van Helsing.
Van Helsing. You had
the 2016 or 2017 Mummy.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I feel like you're right. I feel like the sweet spot for horror is actually in the mid to smaller budget range, apparently, from the results, right? Because there was not a lot to pick from. Event Horizon, surprisingly,
that was a big budget.
Was a big budget one, and that's sitting at like 20% of Rotten Tomatoes, so that wasn't even like that well regarded. So, right, so that's definitely a possibility too. But that's the thing. As Shin Godzilla, I don't know, it was probably big budget for Toho. It was Toho's return to the Godzilla thing, and I think they did it right. We ranked on. We do a horror podcast called Halloweekly, and we do postings on social media from that platform, and we had done here's our ranking of the our five favorite Godzilla movies. So go check that out on the Halloweekly Facebook page if you want. But we had ranked Shin Godzilla as number 2 in the entire franchise. So I think that's just an incredible film, and it's the scariest Godzilla to me. But we have not. Let's get to 98 Godzilla, because you have a real soft spot in your heart for 98 Godzilla.
Dude, I've
only seen it once.
So. You were talking about how the first Godzilla was about nukes, and this one's about natural disasters, and Shin Godzilla is about 98 Godzilla is about postmodern consumerism, and because the advertisements of that
Romero's
film,
Godzilla.
Yeah, it was Romero's Godzilla in terms of marketing, dude. That film had me so hyped when it came out.
The marketing for that was amazing.
I still love it. In fact, it's been a long time since I've seen the film, but I rewatched a YouTuber today who compared the 98 Godzilla. He was basically like going like, what went wrong with it? And he was like, the monster design, it's not Godzilla. He's like, but the design on its own is really cool to look at.
Right, if you didn't have Godzilla in mind.
And then the thing that he said that I completely forgot, and I still need to rewatch it, but like from what I remember and how I feel about the film, he was like, a lot of Godzillas have like shitty human like parts.
Right.
But this one had a pretty decent human part. Element to it. Because remember, it was like Matthew Broderick and like, who's the guy from The Simpsons who does like Moe's voice and like
yeah, I remember some of the actors. I just don't remember what the stakes were for them. It's been a long time.
I remember liking. There's the one Russian guy who was in like I think like one of the Mission
Impossibles.
Impossibles.
He stole a lot of the scenes.
Yeah, he was great. He was like a news reporter, I think.
Yep.
It's been so long, but like was like they came out in '98. But I remember more of them.
Here's the weird thing, and I'm not I got to rewatch it too. Like I don't want to like. We love what we love, right? Like it hits you at the right time, and it's a fun movie, and like whatever. So. But what I remember was feeling like I was watching characters escaped from the Big Lebowski got into a Godzilla movie.
That's kind of how they're dressed, yeah.
And it was also kind of how they talked and they acted. There was some comedy going on, and there was like, it was some weirdness going on. It was very odd, and that could work because it's just insane enough to work, like, but it's been a long time.
Godzilla 98 is the next Halloween 3. That's my campaign. That's my campaign, dude.
All right.
Yeah, I should probably rewatch it again before I commit to the campaign.
Yeah, but I mean, let's be honest. This is, let's go back to, because all you got to do is go back to the Toho series and look at a lot of the ridiculousness they were perpetrating in that to realize that this is not a franchise that needs to be taken all that seriously all the time, right? Like, there's a lot of ridiculous fun stuff that happens in these movies, and that apparently it sounds like that movie
I would rank my human parts, because I feel like you have to break Godzilla into 2 parts.
Yes.
The Godzilla part and the human part.
That's interesting. Maybe 98 is the best human.
I think it has the second best. I would say original.
Oh,
First,
okay,
because I
yeah.
absolutely loved everyone in that, and I cared about them. And I actually,
undoubtedly,
like, because we were.
I just assumed that the original was number one, so I wasn't thinking about it. But
yeah. So I love
but
that. It's
taking
so
the
good.
original out, it's possible
be-
that '98 Godzilla has the best human element.
I'm just saying.
So if every Godzilla movie is an Oreo, right? If is all cookie and cream, like maybe it's the best cookie part. Who knows?
I think we're on
compared to the original.
I think we're onto something with this because
I did not like the humans in 14 as much as I have. The movie has grown in my estimation. I do not.
I would have loved Bryan Cranston's character.
Yeah, that was a big
if he
mistake.
just lived and they didn't advertise like, dude, he was coming off like the ending of Breaking Bad.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It would be like getting James Gandolfini right after Sopranos and being like, we want you in our movie for 5 minutes. Like,
unless you're Hitchcock, man. Come on. Don't do that. Don't do me like that.
Right.
Yeah, I think Godzilla on 8. Plus, the marketing was super good.
Right.
I just remember like all the Taco Bell commercials and like, though I had like a Godzilla watch. I even had like a Godzilla hand puppet.
See, it's supposed to be fun. That's right.
Everything. I had everything.
But maybe it's better than we think. So you're telling me, let's get you on record here. In 2050, you're predicting that Criterion Collection will come out with a deluxe version of '98 Godzilla.
I think that they're gonna sit Matthew Broderick's old ass down and interview him.
I could see that.
And they're going to talk about it for an hour and a half. And
that.
then an audience is going to get up. A symphony will have this big crescendo. Fireworks will go off. And then they'll make a sequel follow-up to 98.
It's on. I love it. All right. So this has been amazing. I love that we were able to do like a lot of a franchise instead of just one film as a break from focusing on a one film. But the Criterion presentation of this is incredible. So go check that out.
It was
Gojira is actually scary, as is Shin Godzilla, as are parts of 2014 Godzilla. So like, I feel like because this show is called Criterion, we in the end of the day we got to settle on where were the scary parts, and the scary parts are definitely not in King of the Monsters, right? So like this is
let's talk about some of the scary parts in the original.
Okay.
Because, like, I honestly think if you put a freeze frame of that first appearance of Godzilla where he's speaking in Severed Mountain, does it look cheesy because of the design?
Of course.
Absolutely. But when I was watching the movie, like, it's so funny. Just seeing the top of his head gave him scale.
Right.
And I was like, what are you guys doing? Run.
Well, and that's another, yeah, exactly. And that's another thing. Like Godzilla was designed, his skin, obviously, as most people know by now, that is designed to look like what radiation damage to human skin. To hearken to the victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but his head was also designed to be mushroom cloud shaped, which is not something I knew until I watched the Criterion presentation, which makes it even weirder that the new Godzilla has a tiny head and a huge body. It's like they just did a reverse of that.
It's like the Hills Have Eyes version. Just
how so?
Remember the guy? No, that guy had a huge head in the remake.
Right, yeah, reversed, right. So, but they shrank his head down. He looked like he's the guy from Beetlejuice with sitting in the suit with his tiny head. So, like, I don't know why they did that because obviously there was a reason he had that. But you're right, he's terrifying there. And I know it's a black and white movie and it's old, so like, you got to have some imagination to kind of recapture. But it terrified audiences at the time, legitimately. King of the Monsters is not terrifying audiences at the time now. You got to terrify audiences at the time you're released at the very least. And Gojira terrified people. They were panicking in the theaters when it was first released.
What I liked about this one was in the newer films when Godzilla shows up, it's like, hey, there's Godzilla. This is great. And it's just like, okay, we're in the Godzilla world. We expect that. In the original, in this one, it felt like he would make his appearance, shake the fuck out of everything, and then everything got quiet. And then when you see him come out of the water again, it was just all these appearances where he just come every time he poked his head out of the water, like you just felt yourself brace up.
Yep. And that music started, which was a huge.
The newer ones didn't. The newer ones, even my beloved 98. did not have that, like, because I know they started making him the hero, and maybe I think that's a mistake. I don't like my Godzilla friendly.
But see, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm pegging on 14 as being better than I thought when I saw it, because if you go back and look, there is this one scene where Godzilla emerges. I had shown it to you yesterday, and you remarked on it. There's like these Chinese lanterns, paper lanterns, and his tail is going by, and then there's a flash of lightning, and you just see him like really outlined in the back. And I braced that, like that is what you're wanting from those movies, right? And that's what they're not giving us most of the time. But the original had it in spades, like so.
What part of the original did you find the scariest, like growing up?
Well, as a kid, just first of all, the concept of Godzilla is scary. But I got to admit that the scariest part to me was how agonized everybody was. So, like, including Godzilla, because Godzilla, I was joking with you when we were watching the first one that, like, Godzilla, he lives in his like cozy lair under the sea. He's just like hibernating and eating, doing whatever Godzilla does, right? And he's just got like a soft sand bed or whatever. And then, he's got to go retaliate, and he's walking around. He looks like he's in pain all the time. It looks like everything he steps on is like a Lego brick to a barefoot person, right? And he's like going through electric fences that they're putting up, and he's getting shot by tanks. And I think the scariest part was exactly why Godzilla is so interesting as a monster, is because I was most scared for him. As a kid, I understood why he was doing what he was doing, and I understood why he was roaring in rage and frustration and pain, like whatever. So like I was more scared for him than of him. If I know that's weird, but when you think about the really top tier monsters, like the best, the ones that became most iconic, they all have that. Dracula has it, right? Like Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola version, he's straight up sympathetic, right? In a lot of the parts, right? Frankenstein has it for sure, right? King Kong has it. You have empathy for all of them. So like the monsters like that you don't have empathy for, the Michael Myers and the Freddy Kruegers and the Jason Voorhees, they're second tier. But like the very, very top tier monsters, I feel like you have empathy for them, and I had empathy for him. That was the scariest part to me. Was I felt like it looked like life sucked for everybody in that movie.
Not only did life suck, but the oxygen got sucked out of Godzilla's lungs, dude.
Right? So, and I mean, and in a less esoteric, like abstract way, I was terrified by the scenes as a kid that were terrifying, that were supposed to be terrifying. I was terrified when the oxygen destroyer Alka-Seltzered the fish, and she turned away because you weren't shown it, so you did it in your imagination, like what was happening in there. So that scared me, right, as a kid. And then when Godzilla's the scene where he's doing the mother and the child, the famous scene where she's saying that we're to the child, we're going to go meet our dead dad in heaven now. I didn't see that as a kid because I was not at the time. So that didn't like whatever, but like that spirit was in the movie. Like you saw people panicking and cornered, and so I was obviously scared for them. And then as a kid, think about like your entire fate is in the hands of adults, right? They're in charge of everything. They're teaching you, and they're taking you. They're chauffeuring you, and your fate's in their hands. And adults seemed really pitiful and clueless in Godzilla.
They were scrambling.
So as a kid, I was like, "Wait, the world's run by idiots? like they can't, or they're helpless." Like, so all of that was terrifying to me, and I don't get any of that from the newer movies.
No, not really. And the music in it was so good.
Yeah,
in this original,
absolutely phenomenal.
I would like to hear that like with an orchestra or some shit.
Right? Like a Hollywood Bowl style.
Man, if they did a Hollywood Bowl Godzilla,
we'd be there in a heartbeat.
I'd be there in a heartbeat, dude. That'd be so good.
All right, so we're good, right? That's Godzilla.
I mean, yeah. What more can you say about it? I mean, giant lizard attacks the city, like
right.
I
am still excited for Godzilla versus Kong. I have to admit, and it's only because King Kong is one of my very favorite movies of all time, and I like a lot of the Kong films. Some of them are better than you think. I actually have a fondness. Your 98 Godzilla, my version of that is 77 King Kong with Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange that everyone hates, but I think is kind of great.
Rick Baker originally, I think.
Yeah, but it didn't work, remember? They built the thing and it like fell apart like Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. And like it's I mean, I know that it's not a fantastic film, but I have a soft spot for it the way you have for 98 Godzilla.
I really hope that movie's good, man. Like,
well, because it might be the last one for this.
well, I know they don't have anything planned
Right.
after that
So
one.
hopefully they go out on a high note. But Skull Island was the high note so far.
That's what I'm saying.
Right,
Like,
so-
I hope they don't I hope they don't drag Kong down like that.
But and we didn't even talk about this, but here's one way that Kong can go down. I got 2 words for you to ruin Kong versus Godzilla. You ready?
Banana stash.
I can ruin Godzilla versus Kong in 2 words. You ready? Eco-terrorist.
No, I sort of let's get rid of those eco-terrorist things, dude.
And Charles Dance is a great actor, but that is just a terrible plot line.
I did see like a headline. It was like, "What'd you think of Godzilla?" I forget what it was, but like his big takeaway was like the catering was exquisite. Or
Yeah,
something
he
like,
reminds me of like Peter Cushing or like some of who's that amazing like really snooty seeming guy in Underworld, the guy who plays the villain, like the aristocratic villain. Like,
Yeah.
I never remember his name, but he seems like he would have the same reaction to being in the Underworld films. He like trained with Shakespeare and now he's doing like
he's in a leather outfit. Like, well, gotta keep the lights on, dude. Well, this was fun. I'm glad I finally saw Godzilla.
But definitely, if you are subscribing to Criterion Channel, which you should be, definitely check out the presentation of Gojira. This is a special one, guys, because this is Criterion are the people who brought Godzilla to American shores in the form they should have arrived. So, if anyone deserves to get credit for that, and to if you're gonna watch Gojira, they have the beautiful version of it, and they were the first to do it. So.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it.
Watch more movies. It's that simple.
That's exactly right. Let us know what you think of any of the Godzilla films and check out where we ranked them on our Halloweekly Facebook page and let us know what your ranking is. And until next time,
See ya.